Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to have a look at a beer from another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. These guys are very new to the Scottish beer scene. They seem to be getting some very good reviews at the moment, so I think this will make for a very interesting review, and it's quite cool to be able to review something from these guys at such an early stage in their history. So I sincerely hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. For this one then, we are going to go through to Edinburgh, or Leith to be specific, and we're having a look at my first beer from Newbarns Brewery. So this one is simply called Pale Ale Citra Ekuanot. It comes in at 4.5% ABV, and I think this should be quite interesting. The guys behind this brewery have a hell of a pedigree behind them, so I think, you know, we're in for something a little bit special here. I'm really curious about this. So yeah, big thanks to the guys at Valhalla's Goat in Glasgow for this one. When I was on the phone to them getting my box ready for when I came home, this was one of the breweries that they recommended to me. I basically asked them, are there any new breweries in Scotland that you would recommend I have a look at, and this is the one that they recommended, so here we are. So yeah, as I said, very curious to see what this one has in store for us. Nice to have these guys on at such an early stage in their history, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. It's not often actually that I review pale ales, to be honest with you, so this should be interesting from that perspective as well. So let's see how we get on then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Newbarns Brewery. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I am spending a little bit of time at home in the motherland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Newbarns Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Newbarns Brewery was officially founded, I believe, at the end of 2019, but they opened up in 2020, and they're based in Leith in Edinburgh, which is basically the port part of Edinburgh. But the four friends behind this brewery are Emma McIntosh, Gordon Mackenzie, Johnny Hamilton and Freddie Bjerkseth. So Gordon and Emma are a couple, and they moved down to London from the east coast of Scotland back in 2012. They hadn't actually planned to become brewers, but it just kind of happened that way. So Gordon started working at Siren Brewery just after they opened in 2013, and Emma started working at Kernel Brewery in early 2014. So they met Freddie back in 2012, just before he began working at Beavertown, where he was a sales account manager, and then Johnny also worked at Beavertown, and he was in charge of the Tempest project down there as well, which there's some very good beers in that actually. I do hope that I do wish that I could have tried some of those, but unfortunately that just wasn't possible. But yeah, as you can tell already, very good pedigree at this brewery. But in 2018, Gordon and Emma decided it was time to return to Scotland, and they'd always wanted to set up their own brewery, and by the following year, Freddie and Johnny had joined them in Edinburgh, and it was time to get started on Newbarns Brewery. So the branding apparently is inspired by a bunch of old beer mats that Emma's father found at an auction house dating back from between the 1940s and 1980s, and so all of their branding and things is based on that. But apparently they want to focus on the kind of more sessionable beers, such as like lagers and pale ales and stuff like that. They say on their website that the focus of this brewery is the pub. So yeah, most of the beers are lower alcohol session beers, but there was, when I looked on there, there was like a big imperial stout at like 11%, which was called like normal stout or something like this, if I remember rightly. So there was one big beast of a beer, but the majority of things that you'll find from these guys are you know, lower alcohol sessionable type beers, and there is, I guess, a gap in the market for that in Scotland, but it's quite similar actually to what Kernel Brewery do. So I think that is pretty cool. Some of the table beers and things that you get from Kernel Brewery are very nice actually. I do wish I could review a few more of their things actually, but yeah, I've always quite liked Kernel. Craig, my friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews, he will kind of testify to how good or a test to how good, I should say, how good the kernel beers are. I really like them as a brewery. Wish I could review more of their stuff. But yeah, as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 15 different kinds of beer, a lot of different pale ales from what I've seen. There's a few lagers and things in there, and there are a few kind of lower alcohol porters and stouts and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Newbarns Brewery for the moment. Like I said to you, it's very early in their history, so I'm sure we will have more to add to that in the near future. So yeah, who knows, maybe we can even get these guys on for a Meet the Brewery segment at some stage in the future once this whole coronavirus thing buggers off. Maybe we can do that in like late August, September, or maybe even February. We'll see. Just need to see how this all goes. I will be back home in February and in September, and I do want to do a few Meet the Brewery segments here in Scotland. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about this brewery. Like I said, if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different things that these guys have done thus far. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So this one, as you can see, is a 440 milliliter can. I actually don't know how much I paid for this, because I just paid, I didn't look at the receipt, to be honest with you. I wasn't that bothered. Yeah, I think this one, maybe it was about £4 or something like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, the artwork on this one I think is pretty cool. There you can see the Newbarns symbol there, and that of course goes all the way around the label there, which is quite nice. So yeah, you can see that there. As I said, the beer is simply called Pale Ale, Citra and Ekuanot. Citra and Ekuanot are both hops we know quite well. Citra, lots of mango, little tropical, juicy kind of complexities to it, a little bit of lemon, lime and stuff like that. And then Ekuanot is a big limey beast. Both of these hops I think come in about 13-14% alpha acid normally, both American as well. But yeah, 4.5% pale ale this one. It says it's got wheat in the malt base, so I'm curious to see exactly what kind of pale ale this is. Is it going to be a little bit more West Coasty, or will it be a little bit more New England? Let's crack it open anyway and find out. And as soon as you open that, you can smell the Ekuanot on this. There we go, a little bit of foam when we open it up, but yeah, should be okay. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I have to admit, it is one thing I'm surprised that Kernel haven't started doing yet, is canning their beers. I think, yeah, Siren canned their stuff, Beavertown, started canning quite a while back. So yeah, that's quite interesting actually that Kernel have never done it, but yeah, there we go. Certainly looks a little bit more kind of West Coasty and things. It's got a bit more of that kind of natural haze look to it than the kind of I suppose the New England haze is natural, but it's got a little bit more of that natural haze to it, I guess, rather than the big oaty, wheaty kind of thing that you would normally get. But yeah, that does look pretty nice actually. I just rinsed this glass and you can see there's a few bubbles sticking to it anyway. Just goes to show you how sensitive beer actually is. But yeah, in terms of colour, this one is a lovely kind of bright mango yellow type colour. You can see that there is a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. That's going to fade away and be a very thin foamy layer of course, but leaving quite a thick impressive ring around the edge of the glass. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall it does look pretty nice, and you can see if I stick my fingers behind the glass there is a fair degree of haze to this one. Probably some of that can be attributed to the wheat, but I guess to some extent it probably will just be the fact that this beer is most likely unfiltered and things like that too. So yeah, a little bit somewhere in between natural hazy and New England hazy, I guess we could say. But yeah, certainly looks the part for a pale ale, so nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. Oh, that does smell very nice, I have to say. One thing I've always been a little bit kind of hazy about, if you like, pardon the pun, one thing I've never been too sure of actually is where exactly is the line between a session IPA and a pale ale. I know that pale ale and IPA, the main difference is the malt to hop ratio, if you like, and of course then you've got double IPA and barley wine, which are in the same family. But what is it that actually determines whether something is a session IPA or a pale ale? I'm really not quite sure. Is it just, they keep the malt to hop ratio the same and just, basically lower the malt content, and that's what makes it a session IPA? Yeah, I would be curious to know the technicality in the brewing there between session IPA and pale ale, but I guess that is what it would be. It would be just the same malt to hop ratio as an IPA, but just less malt content. So I guess that seems to make sense, to be honest. But yeah, the Pale Ale and the Session IPAs, they're not a million miles apart, of course. But I will say straight away with this one, the aroma is absolutely beautiful. I've got high hopes for this beer. I'm just going to say that straight away. But yeah, the aroma in this one straight away, you get that lovely big juicy mango that you would expect from Citra, and you get the kind of limey notes from the Ekuanot as well. It's got everything you'd expect from these two hops, to be quite honest with you. And there's nothing unexpected about the aroma of this beer. It is just very nice. And you know, these days with all these IPAs and things that are on the market, you can't ask for much more, to be quite honest. So yeah, with this beer then, you get a lovely soft kind of white bready character coming out of it. You do pick up a little bit of the more bitey qualities from the wheat. It almost smells as if it's got a wee touch of a kind of, you know, maybe a wee tiny bit of Pilsner malt or something in it. It's just got a little bit of that crispness to it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, there does smell as if there's just a teeny little bit of Pilsner malt or lager malt or something in this. But yeah, tiny little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. Soft white bready character. And then you've just got a wee bit of that bitiness of the wheat in there. But yeah, the malt base is kind of what you would expect from a pale ale, to be honest with you. Nothing madly surprising about that. On the green side of the beer, the green components of the hops for me, this one's quite floral and aromatic. It's not spicy, it's not resinous, it is more just kind of bright and floral and aromatic. There's a good grassy component to this one as well. It's a teensy little bit of earthiness, but you know, both Citra and Mosaic are not famed for their earthiness. It's Mosaic that's quite well known for having a little touch of earthiness to it. But yeah, both of these hops are more floral and aromatic rather than anything. But yeah, good grassy component to this one, but I would say it's more the kind of floral aromaticity that stands out of this beer. But yeah, the aroma of this one, I think, is very nice. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, as I said, you do get a lovely juicy mango out of this one. It's got a few other kind of tropical fruit notes to it as well, you know, maybe a little bit of apricot or, you know, papayas, you know, something like that. Those really soft tropical fruity notes, and that will be coming from the Citra. You do get that big kind of more oily limey character out of it from the Ekuanot, and I guess, you know, there maybe is a wee touch of a kind of gooseberry-ish type note in there as well, which again would come from the Citra. Citra can have some really interesting complexities to it, like lychees, gooseberries, lemon limes and things. It's probably one of the most complex hops out there that you're going to find, actually. That and probably, you know, Idaho 7 is the other one that could probably rival it. There's lots of nice little complexities from Citra. Eldorado's got a few things like that as well, but you know, that one never gained the same popularity as like Citra for some reason. Not quite sure why. Maybe it's just a smaller company that produce it or something, I'm not sure. Can never remember, you know, which companies are responsible for which hops actually. It's a bit difficult to keep track of that. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, lovely and soft and tropical, but it's got a nice oily kind of limey and gooseberry type character sitting underneath it. So I have to say, the aroma of this beer is very promising. I don't really want to wait with this one much longer, so let's have a taste of it and see how we get on. This one is the Pale Ale, Citra and Ekuanot, coming in at 4.5% ABV from the newly formed Newbarns Brewery in Leith in Edinburgh. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and a big shout out to Big G from sunny Leith, who likes to comment on all my live streams. Cool to have a beer from his neck of the woods, actually. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, that one is pretty damn solid, I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm just going to say straight away, thumbs up to Newbarns for this. That is solid stuff. You know, from tasting this one, what I was saying about the session IPAs and the pale ales earlier on, it sort of adds up, to be honest with you, because this one comes across as very light in its malt base, and then just it's got a nice big hoppy bite to it. Whereas if you have a session IPA, you know, it does, come to think of it, it does have a little bit more of a kind of malty backbone to it, if that makes sense. This one is almost very crisp in its malt base and also quite bitey in its hops. So maybe that is maybe I was right in what I said about the difference between the the session IPAs and the paleos, you know, they stick to the malt to hop ratios and just bring the malt content down in a session IPA, if that makes sense. Because yeah, the alcohol percentage in your beer is dependent on the malt that you put in the beer, unless you add a little bit of brew sugar, come to think of it. But this beer is pretty damn fresh actually. It tastes very fresh. It does certainly have a nice bite to it. It has a canned on date here, I noticed that. So this one was canned on the 18th of November 2020, and I'm guessing that, you know, this beer will need a little bit of time to kind of mature in the can, probably straight after it's canned. You know, usually a lot of breweries recommend that. So I'm drinking this one for you on the 29th of December. So this beer is about 6 weeks in the can, and it's in very, very nice condition, I think, actually. Really solid condition. I'd be curious. Something I'm not too familiar with is how, you know, what kind of maturation period you're supposed to leave beers in the can and things for after you freshly can it. But this beer is in very, very good condition at the moment. It's got a really nice kind of bitiness to it. If we're talking about this beer in the context of different paleos and IPAs and stuff, this is definitely more of a kind of West Coaster. I think it's definitely got a little bit more of that kind of bitiness to it. And it's not, you know, normally with the West Coasters, of course, as well, you would think there'd be a little bit of a sweeter character to the malt base. This one is quite, you know, smooth and bready in that sense. But then again, you know, the lower malt content, the less likely you are to have you know, more different varieties of malt in it. So it makes sense. More of a West Coast type paleo, this one for sure. But very nicely executed. So yeah, straight away with this beer then, let's break down the flavour. Straight away with this beer across the middle of your palate, lovely soft white bready base coming out of this one, quite pale malty. If you go towards the back third of your palate, you do start to get more of the wheaty bitiness out of this one, and on that borderline between middle third and back third of your palate, there is a bit of that real kind of crispness to the beer. It's almost just got a little bit of that kind of Pilsner malty type thing to it, which is quite nice actually. I really like how that goes together in this beer. It has got a little bit of that bitiness going on. In the middle of your palate you will notice there is a tiny little bit of a sort of biscuity, McVitie's digestive sort of thing. There is just a wee touch of sweetness builds up in the middle of your palate there. That could just be the booziness of the beer, but at 4.5%, of course, the thing is very sessionable and very drinkable. But yeah, nice little bit of bitiness from the wheat, little bit of that kind of crispness from what I suspect is a wee bit of Pilsner malt or some sort of lager malt in there. And yeah, the centre of your palate is quite soft and pale malty and bready, if you like, with a wee bit of with a little bit of biscuity character to it. So yeah, it comes across really nicely in its malt base. It's perfect for this is quite a summery beer, to be quite honest with you. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you have got a little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the side of the palate, it's got a wee touch of herbal quality, but not a lot, to be honest with you. And as you reach the front corners of your palate, it's got a nice big sort of spicy floral aromaticity. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, the beer is lighter and grassy. So yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one. I'm wondering if there's a wee bit of like Columbus in here as a bittering hop, but in fairness, both Citra and Mosaic, if you add them early on in the boil, when you're going to get more of the bitter components coming out, of course, you will get that kind of more spicy bitter character off them, and both of those hops are capable of giving you such a big, you know, spicy floral component. So I'd be curious to know if there is, you know, Columbus or something like that in the you know, as a bittering hop in this one. I think I've got a feeling that there could be there's something familiar about the way that the spiciness comes out in this beer. It is quite a bit more spicy in the greens component than you would get from the Aroma, for sure. But then round the very front curve of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a lighter kind of grassy thing there, but it is a wee bit of that kind of spicy and aromatic floral component that comes out of this beer. But yeah, on the front third of your palate, you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. And if you go towards the back of that, you do get a wee touch of a kind of more passion fruity sort of thing, which will be from the Citra. Citra can give you a wee bit of those stronger, more pungent grapefruit and passion fruit notes, but as you move further forward from it, definitely mango, and then you get a few, you know, apricot type things out of it, these lighter kind of tropical fruits. But the front half of that front third of your palate, the front sixth of your palate, if you want to be pernickety, that's got a little bit that is definitely a little bit more oily, and that's where you get the more kind of limey Ekuanot flavours coming out of this one. It is a straight up oily lime. There is maybe a wee bit of a gooseberry quality comes out of it, which would be from the Citra. You do get that the further that you go into the aftertaste, which is quite nice. That's a really interesting component to pick up in this beer. But yeah, this is really nice. It's got a very nice balance between the more kind of citrusy and oily fruits and the kind of lighter tropical juicy kind of things. So it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. This is a really nicely executed pale ale. They do have a lager out there at the moment, so I think my next beer that I would want to try from these guys would be a lager. You know, they've got darker things too, so it would be cool to try a few more of their lighter things and then have a go at the the big stout that they have. I don't know how long that big stout would be around for, right enough, but it would be cool to have a go at one of the lagers, and you know, have a go at one of the one or two of the little, you know, the porters and stouts and things, and then the big stout. That would be quite cool. So I'll need to see what I can do about getting a hold of a few more of these, but with lockdown it is quite difficult. But yeah, regardless, I mean, if I only get to try one beer from Newbarns this time that I'm home, I'm happy with this. This is a solid pale ale, and this is definitely a brewery I will be keeping an eye out for when I go through to Edinburgh. Yeah, there's quite a few good breweries in Edinburgh these days. You know, Stewart, Campervan, amongst others. You know, these guys are a really nice addition to the Scottish beer scene. So, you know, big welcome to Newbarns Brewing. This is very, very nice. It does remind me of Kernel, but that's not surprising. It's not surprising at all. But yeah, that's awesome stuff. You know, it'd be really nice to. The other pale ales that they've released so far have different hops and things in them, so it would be nice to have a go at a few of these in the future. But solid brewery, this one, definitely. These guys are going to be one of the ones that release a hell of a lot of different beers. You know, probably same base recipe, different hops, or play around with different malts and things like that. That's what this brewery are going to do as they go forward, and there's nothing wrong with that. Very bright future ahead of these guys, I think. So it'd be cool to see these guys open up their own tap room in Edinburgh. I think that would be quite nice with the ethos that they have. That's probably something they've got in mind already, right enough. But yeah, big thumbs up to Newbarns for this one. In terms of the mouthfeel then, this is quite you know, it's quite a light-bodied beer. There's no getting away from that kind of light-bodied beer. Nice big kind of crispness to it. Good little bit of bitterness. Carbonation does kind of play a role in that as well, but I think overall I'd describe this beer as being at the top end of light-bodied. In terms of hoppy bitterness, what would we say? This beer's got to have about 50 IBUs in it, 50 or 60. But remember, this is my weakest point. Telling the bitterness of beers is the weakest point of my reviews by a long way. So I would want to see about 60 IBUs with this beer. This one does have a wee bit of bite to it, 50 or 60 IBUs for sure, and I'm leaning towards 60. But yeah, the malt base, as I say, nice and smooth and crisp. It does have a wee touch of sweetness to it later, and the fruits are nice and juicy, but there's a wee, you know, there's quite a wetness to the fruits, I would say. But this is just a lovely, lovely beer. You could tan this very, very easily. And it is all about the sessionability. So yeah, I look forward to trying more from these guys. I think, you know, with my sort of lager phase that I'm going through on the channel at the moment, the next one to hit up would be one of the lagers. So yeah, let's see about doing that when I'm home this time. If not, I'll catch a few more of their beers in February when I make it back for my dad's birthday. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Lovely, lovely beer this, and I'm very glad that Valhalla's Goat gave me this recommendation. So yeah, if you get the chance to try some of the Newbarns Brewery beers, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with these. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So this one was the Pale Ale Citra Ekuanot. That's quite important with this one. This was the Pale Ale Citra Ekuanot from Newbarns Brewery in Leith through in Edinburgh. Lovely, lovely beer this one, and I'm glad I was able to review it for you here on the channel. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from this brewery if you have had them already. And I will catch you guys soon on the next beer review. The Pale Ale Citra Ekuanot from Newbarns Brewery through in Leith in Edinburgh. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and thank you for watching.